A lot of times I ask myself, what would have happened to me? Who would I have become if things hadn't intervened in my life the way they did? I was raised in a very in a bubble, I think I would say, in a white suburb of Chicago, and so I lived until I was 18 years old without even having a conversation with somebody that was of African descent. But I think a turning point for me, really, was when I was in a racial healing or a race unity workshop, and we saw this movie. It was called Ethnic Notions. The thing I will never, ever forget from this video was that they were showing cartoons that showed stereotypical images of black folks. And they were using this then as an example of how we'd been kind of brainwashed around racial imagery. And as they showed these cartoons in this documentary, I had this sudden realization that these were the cartoons I had watched as a little girl. Those images were just burned into my brain. And the watermelon images, and these little black children that were portrayed as, this was such painful imagery. I became suddenly horrified and enraged with the realization that I had been, like my mind had been tampered with. That somehow this purity of me as a child had been tampered with. What was happening is I was beginning to be conditioned about how I would see black people. When I relate to people who are black at this point in my life, am I relating based on my own heart?
Right.
Am I relating based on my own soul? On my nobility? On the beauty of my desire to connect? Or am I relating to them based on this imagery that's been embedded into my mind that tells me I should feel superior, that tells me I'm better, that tells me I'm smarter, that tells me they're dangerous? This is the most insidious form of conditioning that I can imagine. I find this to be abuse, really of the spirit of a person, to have that imagery implanted in your minds. And I believe that we walk around now as adults, those of us who are white, relating to black folks based on these images. Maybe not so much the younger generations. I think the images they've seen are different. But what we've seen, we have been brainwashed. And this is something I feel so passionate about because of that moment in that person's living room. And I thought, I am not free. And that was the moment, I believe, that intervened for me and changed the story I was telling myself about race and about how I relate to people of a different race. And then we started traveling, we got on the road, and we started meeting people. And the more people I met and the more loving relationships were developed, the more power started to flow through me to continue this work. It really became these relationships with my black sisters, my black brothers. I started to feel like, wow, my whole family I didn't even know my family was out there, The power of these connections and the power of these loving relationships feeds me.
Right.
And keeps me moving towards freeing myself and helping other people see the possibility of freeing themselves so that we can start to relate to one another in the way we were created to relate to one another. So that's how I think things have changed for me, and I see myself, my whole trajectory has just shifted as a result of first these awarenesses and then these relationships that are helping me to heal myself. I think one of the things that I bring is just that I'm a connector, and I really crave these intimate connections, and I thrive on them, and I know how to look for them in other people, and so other people respond to that. But I think also I bring my passion for this process of freeing ourselves from habits of mind, addictive, really, habits of mind and patterns of behavior. And if we can free ourselves from this conditioning through mindfulness, through practicing maybe stepping outside of the moment and just reframing what we see going on, that gives us a freedom. That gives us a level of serenity and detachment where we can say, okay, I see what's going on here. This is something else jerking me around. This isn't my true self speaking. Can I step away from this this voice that's kind of rattling around in my brain and instead tune into this voice that is my truest self and respond based on that? And so I think I have a fairly good understanding of that process of healing ourselves from those unhealthy ways of responding, and so I can offer that to what our team brings to people.